I watched my neighbor Jim sell his house last month. 71 years old, 43 years at the same company, did everything right. Saved 15% of every paycheck, maxed out his 401k, paid off his mortgage by 60, and now he's moving into his daughter's basement because he ran out of money, not because he was reckless, not because he gambled it away. He just lived too long and got sick at the wrong time. Here's what nobody wants to say out loud. The generation everyone assumed would retire comfortably is quietly going broke. And it's not because they screwed up. It's because the entire system they built their lives around was designed for a world that stopped existing sometime around 2008, and nobody bothered to tell them the game had changed. The philosophical thesis here is pretty straightforward. Boomers made a deal. They traded their youth, their time, their labor for a promise. Work hard, save diligently, follow the rules, and you'll get security in old age. That was the contract. Except contracts are only worth something if both parties can actually deliver. And it turns out the other side of this deal, the entire economic and social infrastructure, can't hold up its end anymore. The rules were written for a game that no longer exists. And now an entire generation is discovering this in real time at the exact moment when they have no time left to adapt. I'm going to walk through exactly how this happened, why everyone missed it, and what the actual numbers look like when you strip away the optimistic retirement planning brochures. Because this isn't just about boomers. This is about what happens when the systems everyone trusts turn out to be built on assumptions that no longer hold. Think about musical chairs for a second. Remember that game? Everyone walks around while the music plays, and when it stops, you find a chair. Simple. Now imagine you're playing, but you're not allowed to look at the chairs. You're told, just keep walking, do your laps, and when the music stops, there'll definitely be a chair for you. Trust us. Meanwhile, someone is quietly removing chairs. One here, one there. Not all of them, just enough. When that music finally stops and you turn around, you realize about 40% of the players are just standing there. No chair, game over. That's what happened to boomers. And here's the thing. They were conditioned not to look at the chairs because looking, questioning, that was considered paranoid or financially illiterate. Just trust the system. Keep working, keep saving, the chairs will be there. Let me tell you about Sandy. 69 years old, had a plan. She owned a house in Los Angeles, bought it in 1987 for $190,000. By 2023, it was worth $1.2 million. Her plan was elegant. Sell the house, move to a cheaper city on the coast, pocket the difference, live comfortably. That was her chair. Then her son got sick, cancer. He couldn't work. She became his caretaker. Then her uncle, who'd helped raise her, needed assistance, dementia. The move got delayed. Then delayed again. Then indefinitely. Now she's 71, still in that house, still working part-time, and that nest egg she thought she had is evaporating in property taxes and caregiving costs she never budgeted for. Nobody told her that her chair might come with conditions she couldn't control. Here's where it gets interesting. When you look at the data, 45% of baby boomers have $0 saved for retirement. Not a little, zero. Another study found the median retirement account balance for boomers is $152,000. Now, you might think, okay, $152,000, that's something. Let me break down what that actually means. If you're 65 and you have $152,000 and you're planning to live to 85, that's 20 years. That's $7,600 per year. That's $633 per month from your savings. Social Security pays the average boomer about $1,500 a month. So you're living on roughly $2,133 monthly before healthcare costs, before housing, before food. That's poverty with a retirement account. But you might be thinking, wait, didn't boomers benefit from the greatest economic expansion in history? Didn't they buy houses for nothing and watch them appreciate? Didn't they have pensions? Yes. And that's exactly why this is so shocking. They had every advantage. And still, half of them are broke. Here's what happened. It's not one thing. It's a cascade, a series of traps that all sprung at the same time. Trap 1. They lived longer than anyone planned for. In 1970, when the oldest boomers were in their 20s, life expectancy at 65 was about 15 more years. You retired, you got your pension for a decade and a half, you died. Clean. The system was built for that. Today, if you're 65, you're expected to live another 20 to 25 years. 1 in 3 will live past 90. 1 in 7 past 95. The number of centenarians, people living past 100, increased 44% between 2000 and 2014. So you've got a system designed to support you for 15 years now, stretched across 25 or 30. Except nobody increased the funding proportionally. It's like planning a road trip with enough gas for 300 miles and then discovering the destination is actually 500 miles away. You're running out of gas and there's no station in sight. Elizabeth and Frank are 72 and 74. They saved for decades, did everything the financial advisors told them to do. They had a number, a goal, they hit it. That was their chair. Then Frank developed dementia 2 years ago. Early onset. The costs are $5,000 to $6,000 a month. Just for his care. That's $60,000 to $72,000 a year. Their retirement savings being drained at a rate they never modeled because nobody told them this was a likely scenario. Elizabeth is still working 2 12-hour shifts a week as a hospital chaplain. At 72, not because she loves the job, because the math doesn't work otherwise. Trap 2. Healthcare cost went exponential. A 65-year-old couple retiring in 2021 should expect to spend about $300,000 on healthcare throughout retirement. That number doesn't include long-term care, just regular medical expenses, premiums, prescriptions, co-pays. Out-of-pocket spending for the average Medicare beneficiary is about $6,800 annually, and prescription drug prices are rising roughly 10% per year. Think about what that does to a budget. You're on a fixed income, Social Security adjusts maybe 2 or 3% for inflation if you're lucky, and your drug costs are climbing 10% annually. That's a death spiral, slow but mathematically certain. Now here's the kicker on healthcare. Boomers, because they are living longer, are dealing with multiple chronic conditions simultaneously. It's not one illness you treat and move on. It's diabetes, plus high blood pressure, plus arthritis, plus early dementia. You're managing 4, 5, 6 prescriptions, each one climbing in price, each one necessary. You can't just stop taking them, so you cut elsewhere. Food, housing, heat in winter. I know a guy who stopped using his air conditioning in Phoenix in summer because his insulin costs went up. Phoenix, in August. That's the trade-off. Trap 3. The 2008 financial crisis hit them at the worst possible time. If you're 30 when the market crashes, you've got 35 years to recover. If you're 55, you've got maybe 10 years before you need that money. The Urban Institute found that households headed by people aged 47 to 56 in 2007 lost more wealth than any other age group. Their average wealth fell 48% from 2007 to 2010. The median retirement account balance for workers 55 to 64 dropped 22% in those 3 years. Not only did they lose the principal, they lost all the compound interest they would have earned on that principal. It's not just the money that disappeared, it's the future growth of that money. And here's what makes it worse. Many couldn't wait for the recovery. They needed to retire. They had health issues, got laid off, couldn't find new work because, let's be honest, nobody wants to hire a 60-year-old when they can hire a 30-year-old for less. So they pulled money out at the bottom, locked in losses. The market recovered eventually, but they weren't in it anymore. I'll tell you a quick story. A guy I used to work with, Larry, 58 in 2008, had about $600,000 in his 401k. Felt pretty good. Market crashed. His account dropped to $310,000. He panicked, moved everything to bonds to preserve what was left. Market recovered over the next 5 years. His bond fund grew to maybe $350,000. Meanwhile, if he'd stayed in, that $600,000 would have been back to $600,000 by 2013 and over $1 million by 2019. But he didn't know. He was scared. And the system punished him for being human. Trap 4, and this is the one nobody saw coming. They became the sandwich generation. They're supporting aging parents and adult children simultaneously. 61% of parents with adult kids provided financial support in the previous year. That's not a small loan for a car repair. That's rent, tuition, medical bills, mortgage help. Pew Research found about 1 in 4 Americans are caregivers for an older adult. Most of those caregivers are boomers. Caregiving isn't just time, it's money. Lost wages because you can't work full time, direct expenses for medical equipment, medicine, home modifications. On the other side, their kids are struggling. College debt, housing costs, wages that haven't kept up. So boomers are funding both ends. Steve and Beth Bureau are in their late 60s. They thought, we'll retire, travel, enjoy life. That was the deal they made with themselves. Instead, they're supporting Steve's mother, who has Alzheimer's, and their 32-year-old daughter, who's back home because she can't afford rent in their city. Steve says, all I'm looking at is working and making money. That's not retirement. That's a treadmill. And here's the really dark part. They can't say no. Culturally, psychologically, they can't just cut off their parents or their kids. It's family. So they drain their retirement funds and hope somehow it'll work out. Let me give you a concrete case study with real numbers so you can see how this cascades. Meet Richard and Carol, both 67. Richard worked in manufacturing for 38 years. Carol was a teacher for 32. Combined, they saved $280,000 for retirement. Their house is paid off, worth about $370,000. On paper, they're doing better than most. Their monthly income, Richard's Social Security is $1,900. Carol's is $1,400. Combined, $3,300 monthly. Their retirement accounts, if they withdraw 4% annually, that's $11,200 per year or $933 per month. Total monthly income, $4,233. Their expenses, property taxes, $1,200 monthly. Utilities and maintenance, $400. Health insurance premiums and out-of-pocket costs, $1,100. Prescriptions, $350. Food, $500. Car, insurance, gas, $250. That's $3,800 monthly, leaving them $433 for literally everything else. Clothes, entertainment, gifts, emergencies. They're functional, barely, as long as nothing goes wrong. Now Richard's mother falls. Hip replacement, needs rehab, 3 months, costs $2,800 monthly. Richard and Carol cover it because Medicare doesn't pay for everything and his mom's savings are gone. That's $8,400. Then Carol needs a root canal, $2,300 out of pocket. Then their car transmission fails, $3,000 to fix. In 1 year, they've blown through $13,700 in unexpected costs. That's more than their annual retirement account withdrawal. They're now pulling extra money out, which means they're depleting principal, which means next year they have less generating returns, which means their 4% withdrawal is smaller, which means they have even less income. Within 5 years at this rate, the retirement account is empty. They're living on Social Security alone, $3,300 monthly with the same expenses. Now they're short $500 every month. Their only asset is the house. So they either reverse mortgage it, which means they're slowly giving up ownership, or they sell and move somewhere cheaper, which means leaving their community, their doctors, their support system. This isn't a story about people who were reckless. This is math. And the math doesn't work for millions of people who did everything right. Now, 2 quick observations that might sound cynical but are just true. First, every financial institution selling retirement products in the 80s and 90s knew these numbers wouldn't work for everyone. They had actuaries, they had models, but selling you probably won't have enough doesn't move product. Selling say 15% and you'll be fine does. Incentives matter. Second, notice how every retirement planning article says you'll need $1.5 million to retire comfortably. Then you look at the median and it's $152,000. That's not a small gap. That's 10 times. That's systemic. So what do you actually do with this information? 3 things. 1, if you're still working, model for 30 years of retirement, not 15. Assume you'll live to 95. Plan for that. It sounds excessive until it isn't. And build in a healthcare buffer that's at least double what the calculators say, because the calculators are optimistic. 2, if you have adult children, have the uncomfortable conversation now about what you can and can't fund. Set boundaries. I know that sounds harsh, but depleting your retirement to help them just means they'll have to support you later, and they're already struggling. Better to let them figure it out now while they have time. 3, look at your expenses with genuine brutality. Most people retire and think their costs will drop. They don't. Healthcare replaces commuting. Boredom spending replaces work lunches. You need to actually track where money goes and cut the stuff that doesn't matter, because you'll need that cushion for the stuff that does. The generation that built suburbs and raised GDP and funded Social Security for everyone before them is discovering that when it's their turn, the chairs got moved. Not all of them, just enough.